Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at Riderflex. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the Riderflex show for updates on new episodes. And by the way, if you haven't already, check out the book we recently launched, The Riderflex Guide, Inspiring and Hiring, available for purchase on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Great to see you, man.
Thanks.
Just so you know, you're the first person. I think we've done 360 episodes or something like that. You are the first guest to be on for 3 times. Yes.
I love it. I wrote down my bucket list a while ago, and here we are.
You're such a great guest, man. You're so entertaining. You have such a great personality
Let's see if we can do something about that.
I've watched you continue to build this brand, not only for Xero Shoes, but, for Steven Sashen and the podcast and the Movement podcast, wow, bro, congrats.
Thanks. It's all getting very interesting. We've gotten to the point, as far as we can tell, where they can't keep moving the goalposts on us and say, well, when you get here, it's like we've gotten to the point where it's like, no, we're here.
Yes, I seriously. And we're rolling, so we'll just keep rolling. 53,000 reviews. It's probably more than that now.
No. Over 53,000 5-star reviews.
Oh, thank you.
It's about 64,000 and change actual reviews.
I mean, what other consumer brand your size has? Nobody. I've never seen that before. No.
The numbers are crazy. I mean, we also have a thing where I think it's about 60% of our customers own at least 4 pairs of Xero shoes, which if you talk to people in the footwear world, they just go, sorry, what? It's just unheard of. I mean, when I do a Facebook Live and someone mentions, especially around a time when we're launching new products, and people will half jokingly say, oh crap, now I have to buy more Xero shoes. And then someone will say, yeah, this will be my 10th pair. And then someone will go, I've got 15. And then someone says, I've got 20. I mean, it's outrageous. But it's not surprising, because everything we do is the same DNA. And by giving people the experience of natural movement, they just keep wanting it for other things that they do. Mm-hmm. And so that's how we build out our product line, is let's think of other things that we know people are either asking us for, or that we know would be useful that they haven't asked us for yet. And so, the metrics on our business are just crazy.
The following that you have is really incredible. Besides the fact that the shoes are unique and the quality is excellent, what else do you contribute to it? I mean, it's the first part, that unique part. And it's not about us. All we're doing with Xero Shoes is getting out of the way so your body, starting with your feet, can do what they're supposed to do. Just do what's natural. And the experience of having that, of not elevating your heel and messing with your posture, of not having a whole bunch of foam so your feet with 200,000 nerve endings in each sole can actually still feel the ground and get feedback to your brain about what you're stepping on and stepping in, and then therefore how to move your body efficiently and effectively and enjoyably. That's a thing. Being able to move your feet is important. Having a wider foot-shaped toe box so your toes can spread and actually function instead of being squeezed together. All of these things are about, again, just getting out of the way. And when you let the body do what's natural, I'm not going to say, well, I'll say something interesting in a second. That's often better. And the caveat I'm saying there is there's sometimes where you need an intervention. So 5 weeks ago, I got diagnosed or maybe 6 weeks ago, with a rare form of eye cancer. Oh, bummer, bro. I'm so sorry. Oh,
Stop that right there. Because if you look at me, I'm in no way sorry. It's been the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I could not be more thankful and grateful. And it instantly changed my life. And I have been so appreciative and happy and grateful and all those things. Oh, I still hate it when people are driving 5 miles under the speed limit in front of me. And the gap, the things I'm trying to do in my business to get
other people to do some things that they should be doing instead of me doing. When they can't do them correctly, I'm even more frustrated because I really would like to not be doing those even more now. And I refer to it as the best cancer ever because I didn't have to go through extensive chemo or extensive radiation. They literally just sewed a radioactive disc to my eyeball for 3 days and removed a muscle, sewed on a disc, and then reversed that 3 days later. And my doctors were amazing. It's not uncommon for people to end up with double vision. I don't have that. I still, if you look carefully, I still have a bit of a demon eye. There's some blood in my eye, et cetera. So
how did you find out? How did you find out?
I'll get there in one sec. My point being, if I had just let things, be natural in that case, I'd be dead because this is a very aggressive kind of cancer. And I lucked out. I mean, it's so crazy about how I found it. I went to get my eyes checked, see if my prescription for my glasses was okay. And for reasons that I, to this day, don't know, my ophthalmologist said, let me scan your retina and see what's going on there, and found what they refer to as a freckle or a nevus, which is not uncommon. 10% of the people have them, but they say, but let's just watch it, because if it suddenly starts changing shape and size, then that's bad. And so I went and had a checkup with a ophthalmological oncologist who said, all right, we're just going to monitor this. Let's just watch it every 3 months. And then they screwed up my next appointment and I didn't get to go. Pardon me. And then they didn't call me for the next appointment and I didn't get to go. And then my regular ophthalmologist called them and said, what the hell, get him back in the office. So the reason this is good news is, had I gone through those first 2 checkups or those 2 follow-ups and the thing hadn't changed, we would have started going to look for a year or a year and a half in advance. And instead, I ended up having a checkup a year after my first one. And that's when we discovered this thing. And so we found it really early. But the thing with ocular melanoma, and it's not the same as skin melanoma, whole different game. Same name though, is that it grows slowly, and then takes off exponentially. And when it takes off, you're done. Not because of your eye, but because by the time it takes off, it will have cells will have left your eyeball, and for some reason they go into your liver. And once they're in your liver, there's nothing you can do, and you've got like 6 months to a year. So it was an interesting time, not knowing whether it had metastasized, not knowing which type of cancer it is, because there's different types of this particular cancer. And I had a cell-free DNA blood test, where they take your blood and they look for genetic mutations, so like fragments of DNA with genetic mutations. And so I was waiting. It was supposed to be a month for me to find out if they found any fragments that were related to metastasis. And if they did, there's like 7 different ones. And the likelihood of metastasis over the next 5 years amongst those different variants, those different mutations, is between 2% and 70%. So I was, by that point, genuinely fine with any outcome. Really? It either means that I've got to just be more attentive for the rest of my life, which could be quite long, or attentive for the rest of my life, which could be quite short. And either one was really, I'm just, this is going to sound silly, just delightful. Either one would be completely fine.
The waiting was that tough?
Waiting. Well, at first, I'm trying to remember what we were supposed to find out originally. We were supposed to know something earlier on that was a little unknown. And so the waiting for that was anxiety producing for about 5 minutes until I went, I don't know. And so that was the end. And for me, not for my wife. My wife, Lena, likes to figure out everything in advance. So she was a little more stressed out. But someone asked her, how are you doing? And she said, I'm a little more on a roller coaster than he is, but it's hard to stay really freaked out because he's so damn happy. Yeah. So
a little bit life-changing then for you, a little bit, right? Does it make you just think differently? Yeah.
Well, instantly. And, look, this will say something about me. I expected that if I was ever diagnosed with something terminal, that I would have an attitude similar to what I'm describing. I did not in any way predict how profound it would be, just taking a walk with the dog.
Right.
And being overwhelmed by how amazing everything is and how lucky we all are. But I would say, I felt incredibly lucky, and just, clouds, overwhelmingly gorgeous.
It's amazing. The stuff we take for granted every single
everything,
day, bro.
everything.
You know, yes.
Yeah, I felt kind of like I was an alien who either just landed and was seeing cool things for the first time, or I'd been on the planet for a while and was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go soon. I'm gonna miss that. That was really, God, I love those.
Yes.
So
People get so worked up over little things in life and they take so many things for granted.
Well, and here's the thing: you can't. I don't think you can fake it. You can't like try to remind yourself it's precious. You can't remind yourself how lucky you are. You'll have whatever feeling you have, which is great. No arguing that. But from my experience, and I'm not saying this should be true for everybody else or anybody else, the moment that it was possible that I had a very limited time, which we all do, frankly.
Yeah.
From that moment through now, which has now been 7 weeks, I guess. The poignancy of it, the saliency of it was so much more than I ever could have conceived. And so I'm really happy about that. Now I will throw in the following joke, which is a true story. When my doctor told me, actually there's two parts. The physician's assistant was checking me in, like, is this your pharmacy? Is this your address? Do you get these medications? And he says, so do you have any questions about your tumor? I said, sorry, my what? And he goes, be right back. And runs out the door. And he was not supposed to break the news to me that way.
Oh boy.
So then the doctor comes in and I said, so is this like, terminal? He goes, possibly not. We're not sure.
Possibly not.
Possibly not. I said, well, God, it'd be really nice to know, because I already checked with my wife and told her if I ever had a terminal illness, I was going to go on the all chocolate cake and Thai hooker diet. And she had signed off on that idea. So, you're kind of.
Oh, man. Are you a religious guy at all? Like, did this affect any kind of faith for you at all? Or no, did it change any like afterlife thoughts or religious thoughts at all? Were you like, what's that? There's a song, Everybody Prays in the End. I can't remember who does the song, but
no.
Did it change anything for you as far as, life after death or anything?
No. I'll say this though. So back in 1989, I was in Tiananmen Square during the Tiananmen Square massacre. I got shot at, captured, held 6 guys pointing machine guns at my head for a little while, trying to decide who was going to have the good fortune to pull the trigger. And during that time, I had a very interesting thought. So while I am not a Buddhist, there's an idea in Buddhism that your next rebirth is determined by your last thought. And while I had guys pointing machine guns at my head, I kept thinking, I just want to know that I'm dying so I can hopefully get a good one.
What were you doing over there at the time? Were you an activist or what were you doing?
Just visiting a friend.
Wow.
I had been doing stand-up comedy and acting for a living. I'd been working really, really hard. I needed a break. I had always wanted to go to Asia. I had a bunch of money, and one of my best friends had been living in Beijing, helping run the Beijing Jeep factory on part of a Henry Luce fellowship. So it's like a perfect storm of things, but it just coincidentally happened that I got there 3 days before everything got bad. In fact, I flew into Beijing the night before the massacre occurred, and a bunch of us went out and had dinner. We were riding our bikes back over the various ring roads, and we'd watch the troops coming in. And it's like, oh, this is not going to be good.
Speaking of acting and stand-up comedy and all that, your podcast, The Movement, you've done what, 160, 100, how many episodes have you done?
I don't keep track. It would freak me out if I
think,
did.
yeah. I mean, but you've had some great guests on there. I was watching some of them this morning and listening to some stuff, getting ready for our interview today. Really good stuff, Steven. You're already entertaining. You've had some great guests on, and you have lots of good topics around health, not just feet, not just shoes, but just healthy body in general. The movement for anybody listening, available on Spotify, YouTube, and probably everywhere else, I'm guessing.
Yeah, all those places where podcasts are served, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, that's I love it. Is the mission there is to talk about health in general? Is that usually the topic most of the time?
Yeah, but I try to keep some sort of movement-based thing in there.
Okay.
So the line I have is that we're creating a movement about natural movement. And so whenever I can, I want to do something about, and it's not just about running or walking or hiking, but whatever I can find. And I'm always just looking for people who are doing something that is novel, which means, there's fewer people to talk with, and B, there's a bunch of crazy people that I have to talk off a ledge and say, yeah, I can't, I'm not going to be talking about that.
Interesting stat. I was thinking about this stat in my head as I was watching a couple of clips from your podcast. 70, I'm sure you know these stats way better than I do. Something like 40% obese and 70% overweight in the US, something like that. Is that
something
right?
like that? Yeah, I don't have that one in my head, but it's something insane.
That's an insane number. That is a crazy number.
You look at films from the 40s and 50s,
yes,
and you don't see people who look like people now.
That's right. Totally agree. Same with pictures. Any old photos or anything, you don't see a lot of overweight people, hardly ever. I mean,
no.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. But when I saw that, I mean, and people listening to this episode can double check this, but I'm pretty sure technically, or officially, overweight is something like 70%, and obese 40%. It's not just exercise, right, Steven? It's all about the diet. I mean, some of the shit
it's all about the diet, because you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet.
Right.
I mean, if you're running a marathon every day, you're burning a boatload of calories, and that can help. But ironically, running a marathon does not burn a lot of calories.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not as much as people think. It's not like you can, go eat a 5 scoop ice cream sundae, run a marathon, and you're breaking even. And so the people, diet's a really interesting thing, very polarizing. Everyone has an opinion. Most of them are wrong. And there's a challenge, because on the one hand, human beings, we like to know simple things. We want simple stories, simple answers. So it's like, tell me what to eat. And it's like, first of all, it's not so much about the what, but the what makes a difference for some people. So I'm a para athlete. I'm a competitive sprinter. I was a gymnast way back when, et cetera. And I don't know one other power athlete who doesn't eat a high carb diet, and we're fine. I met a guy once. He put me on a very, very carb restricted diet. And I said, look, I'm doing this only because I'm willing to go along for the ride and see what happens, but I'm not optimistic. And so 2 weeks later, I called him. I said, hey, dude, I just did something that I've never done in a workout before. He was really excited. He said, what? I said, bailed. I was on the ground. I couldn't get off the ground because I had no energy.
Really?
Like,
okay.
Huh. So there's a lot of interesting things about diet. Don't talk, between paleo people who think that paleo people did not eat carbs, which by the way they did, but people who are heavy onto meat or fat, and then people who are on the vegan side or the low fat side.
It's all over the place. Yep.
It's the Hatfields and McCoys. It's crazy. But the idea that, there's one diet for everyone, completely absurd. We have a number of differences, genetic and otherwise. And so that's all sort of silly. But the one thing that has been demonstrably shown over and over and over is calorie consumption over time has increased significantly, and activity has decreased. But
there you go.
But it's the calorie part that's doing the heavy lifting, pun intended. And so, the secret, if there's a secret, is either get the flu or COVID like I had, because I just wasn't in the mood to eat and dropped about 10 pounds. But the real secret is finding some way of eating foods that you like with enough volume that you get full appropriately. And so that means typically adding a lot of extra vegetables and doing things that just increase the volume of what you're eating. That's really it. Some people do better on a high carb diet. Some people do better on a low carb diet. There's a really interesting woman named Denise Minger who wrote a book called Death by Food Pyramid. Fascinating book. She's wonderful, brilliant, funny, charming woman. And then she did a blog post, very long blog post, about how very high fat diets seem to make a big difference. Very low fat diets, like 15% fat or fewer your total calories, make a big difference, because they seem to, either one of those extremes, create some metabolic change, some metabolic adaptation.
I see.
And you don't know which one you are until you try them. I know that I'm not a high fat guy. That's just not my thing. But anything in between is a little wishy-washy. And then she wrote another post where she said that she's no longer going to be writing about food. And the way she wrote it made me suspect, I don't know, but I have a sneaking suspicion that her research led her to realize there's no correlation between any particular diet and longevity.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not.
The people who live really long. I mean, there's been a lot of research showing that there's a lot of correlations, like in families where there's someone who lives really long, there's usually other people in the family who live a long time. Like if you find a family with 5 kids who all are, they're all over 80. Guess what? They're all going to be over 90 or something like that. Yep. So, my wife's family, they all live a really long time.
So she can eat whatever she wants. She can eat whatever she wants.
She kind of does. She kind of does. It's not satisfying to hear something like, oh, you just got to find a way to just have fewer calories.
Yeah, you just find a way. And volume, my family's from Oklahoma, and I was back home in Oklahoma recently. And of course, I don't want to say everybody there's heavy, but damn, there's a lot more heavier people in Oklahoma than there is Colorado.
Yeah.
And just volume of food. Like I said, find out what works for you. I know for me, if I am just careful, I'll use the word careful with chips and beer and soda and shitty coffee creamer and, desserts or seconds and the volume that I put on my plate. If I'm just conscious of those things, then, I usually do okay. But it's the volume. I see people put volume on their plate and they think they have to get seconds or whatever, it's like, no, you don't.
Well, I mean, during pandemic times, I did lose about 10 pounds because I just started cooking a lot. And I got really good at making Asian food and really good at Italian food and really good at pizza. And if I were going to go out and buy a personal pizza, I would eat the whole thing. When I make one, same size, same calories, I eat like 3/4 of it.
Interesting. Why is that? I wonder.
I don't know. When I go and pick up Thai food, I'd buy, 2 entrees and an appetizer. I'd eat 1 entire entree. I'd eat most of, 3/4 of the appetizer and 1/4 of whatever Lena ordered because she didn't finish it. When I cooked, I was cooking a smaller portion and was just, making one thing. Yeah. And I would make enough for, each of us to have a meal and for Lena to have leftovers for lunch.
Mm-hmm. You're still in great shape. How old are you? What are you, 50?
Oh, that's so cute. No, I turned 60 6 months ago.
Are you serious? Bro, you look great. I mean, serious. I'm not just saying that. You look good for 60. Are you still the fastest? Are you still the fastest guy in the 40 over 50 or something like that? What's the record?
So my claim to fame by age group. So in masters track and field, they break it down in age groups every 5 years. So 45, 49, 50, 54, 55, et cetera. And so my claim to fame was that in my age group, I was the fastest Jew in the world. And it turns out there's a guy named Alan Tissenbaum who I've met who is in my age group for all but a year and a half when he has turned into the next age group and I have not yet. And Alan blows me out of the water. Alan holds like every American record. He is just all of us sprinters, I'm an All-American, so I'm like the 15th, 20th fastest guy in the country. We're all genetic freaks, but the guys who are in that top 5, they are the freakiest of the freaks.
And how is your running? Are you still running? You probably not. Are you sprinting still? Or are you still just? Are you just carb like going for long runs? What are you doing?
No. I don't run. I don't. It's ridiculous. No, I go a very short distance, very straight line, as fast as I can.
But are you going to the gym? Are you working out? What are you doing? What do you do for
post eye surgery, I'm not allowed to do anything for another 2 weeks. I'm not allowed to increase ocular pressure. So I've just been, all I've been doing is walking the dog for about an hour and a half a day. And,
well, that's good.
And very slowly, because that's all I can do. So it's been really annoying. And, but otherwise, but otherwise I've got, a gym that I built downstairs and I'm on the track twice a week. Yeah.
Okay. Now you're still captaining Xero Shoes as the CEO, right?
Technically. Yeah. I don't know if I'd use the word captain. My management style, to call it laissez-faire would be an overstatement.
Now, when let's see, 2020, what's it been, a year or two? Didn't you took on a partner, an investor? I know you took on, I don't know if it was PE or VC, and I don't know how much you could share. I don't know how much.
No, it's all public. Okay. In December 2020, we took a private equity partner in a minority position. They were called TZP out of New York. And they gave us $12.5 million, which we could have lived without it, but between trade war things and pandemic things and how fast we were growing, it made it so that Lena didn't have to spend all of her waking hours trying to look for sources of capital. Okay. And so, and And I'll tell you this story. I said to their managing director, who's a multi-billionaire, who is friends with other multi-billionaires, at least one of whom I grew up with and know. There's a couple others. And his dad and my dad were good friends. His dad was my orthodontist. And anyway, so I said to him, we're taking your money because we really could use the cash. It would make life easier. But the valuation you gave us was horrible. I totally disagree with it. Our bankers were kind of boneheads and really dropped the ball on a bunch of things.
Okay.
But the other portfolio companies you have, we've talked to a bunch of them. They all love you. You're not trying to extract money from them and just rape them. You are trying to help them build businesses so that you can obviously make a return, but by helping them get better. And we think that you have some resources that can help us as well.
Okay.
Their HR person, sorry for saying it, came with a package and was awesome. But I said, but just so you know, I mean, the money that we're not making on the front end because of the bad valuation, I'm also doing this deal because I know on the back end, if things go well, it's not going to change my life. It's not going to be a rounding error. It's going to be a lot of money, but it's not going to change my life. And he was really happy that someone just, called him on it. And
that's great. Now you've been they did that, 2.5 years ago. Most PE firms are into it for about 5 years. Do you know, are they looking for additional partners? Are they going to flip it, sell it? What's the plan?
They underwrote us with the idea that they would be able to, that the valuation would increase by 3x to 5x in 3 to 5 years.
All right.
All I can say is we are dramatically ahead of that schedule.
Great. Good for you, man. Good for you. And when that happens, when they, get an offer someday, does that mean Steven's retired and he goes back to stand-up comedy a couple of times a year?
No, not that. Somebody approached me a number of years ago, a company out of the UK that owns a number of iconic brands, and they liked what we were doing and said, what would you do if we wrote you a big check? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, if you want me to stick around and do what I like and what I'm good at, and I can do it in about 15 to 20 hours a week, I'm all in.
Yeah.
But if you don't think you need me, then I'm not going to argue with you. You can come visit me on the island you just bought. And he said, boy, that's a really simple answer. I said, well, what do idiots say? And they said, they say, it's my baby. I've got a vision. I go, well, it's my baby and I've got a vision. And I have a side hustle selling vision impaired babies. So, if you buy the company, our job, if we're going to sell, is to find the right partner who can help move this forward, who can help change the world with better resources than we have at our disposal now.
Has Nike or Converse has anybody knocked on the door yet? Is anybody like, hey, let's talk?
We've had a few people who have knocked on the door that we've turned down. We've had a few people knock on the door who wanted to, when people call to buy a company, they have their own financial mumbo jumbo that they do to figure out how much money they want to pay. I like to say valuation is in the eye of the beholder of the checkbook.
You got that right. Yes.
They've got the checkbook. Now, we can disagree with how that checkbook works. So, for example, the company Ultra Running, they sold to local company VF Corporation a few years ago for 3 times their trailing 12-month revenue. Okay.
And VF owns all kinds of stuff, right? They own a bunch of other stuff.
They do. Smart Wool and a bunch. Yeah. And so in the footwear world, we see this pretty often, that there are deals that happen at between 3 and 5 times trailing 12-month revenue.
Okay.
Some companies, they're only looking at Ebitda. They're only looking at your arguable profit. I watched a video last night. It showed up on YouTube as a recommended video with Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. And most people don't know Charlie is Warren's partner, and they've been doing this together. Charlie is mostly in the background. And Warren was talking about how many CFOs will manipulate some of the things in Ebitda, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization. Yes. And he was arguing about that. And then Charlie, after like 20 minutes of this, Charlie comes in and says, whenever you hear the word Ebitda, you can just replace it in your head with the word bullshit.
Especially for small to medium-sized companies, because they're running
growth companies.
I'll use my own company, Riderflex, for example, and we're only a $2.5 million recruiting firm, but I purposely make EBITDA and net income almost zero. Like I drive it to there on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. In theory, and I say this only because I didn't talk to the person I'm about to mention, but we had someone working for us who was friends with Madonna. In theory, Madonna called him and offered and said, would they take $10 million for the company? And when he said, that we were profitable, she said, then you're not spending enough money on marketing. To which I said, please tell her we need the money to buy inventory because we don't have buckets of cash. Unless she wants to give us a bucket of cash, then we can do whatever you want. So like someone asked me the other day, one of our board members actually said, if someone's going to approach you and talk about acquiring your company, how do you answer the question, what should this company look like at 500 million? And I said, how the hell do I know? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, I've never run a $500 million company, and I can think of an infinite number of things it could look like. And he goes, but that's not a good answer. I said, no, it's a great answer because you're not letting me finish. Because the other part of the answer is this is a conversation. My question to them is, what do they want it to look like and how fast do they want to get there? Because I know a particular company, brand that owns a bunch of other brands, their MO is when they acquire a company, they plan to lose money for the next 3 years.
Sure.
Build awareness, crossing their fingers that when they build that awareness, it's going to catch on. And it's worked for them much of the time. But that's the way, that's their playbook. So, if they want to do that, that's cool. Not the way I think. If they want to get to 500 million in 2 years or 2.5 years, I can tell you how to do it. If they want to get to 500 million in 10 years, that's a cakewalk. It's a very interesting thing. You can, in fact, as we're looking at our financials, some of the conversations we have with our private equity partners, it's like, I actually started a meeting yesterday by saying, you got to remember, you're complaining today about things that we all agreed that we were going to do last year, and you're forgetting.
I love that.
And granted, it didn't work exactly the way we expected. It worked better in some capacities and worse in other capacities. But we planned this as much as one can plan things.
As much as one can plan. That's right. It's a business. I mean, shit's going to happen.
There's a conversation I had with our product team today. They're all about how do we forecast better? And I said, just remember, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, whatever the other ones are, those companies exist
That's right.
because you can never get it right.
It's totally. My wife used to work at Marshalls. She worked there for 15 years. And I'd always tell her, I'm like, your company exists because all of these other full price brands never can forecast or guess properly. I mean, that's why they exist. Are you still, I don't know if you can share this or not. TPZ. They were TZP. Sorry. TZP. They were a minority partner. Are you still in control of the vote at the table, or can they tell you what to do if they vote against you? If they all vote against you, can they say
no. Lena and I have control.
Look at that, my man. You've built this highly successful company. You took on cash from a PE firm, and you're still in charge. There you go, folks. Let's just take a pause right there and celebrate right here for all of you out there listening, all of the aspiring entrepreneurs, or anybody thinking about taking on cash. If you can get to, I know you're over, I don't know what volume you're at, but if you can get to a multi-million-dollar company on your, bootstrapping it, then take on cash and still be in charge of the cap table and the boardroom, life is good. Because as soon as you lose control,
we were hoping we could debt finance this all the way to as far as we wanted to go. But, and here's a classic story. In 2019, when the trade war had already kicked in and knocked up the import taxes that we were paying by 15% or more. I mean, to astronomical numbers that we had to pay out of our pocket. Anyone who tries to convince you that the Chinese paid for those tariffs, no, we paid for them, and we did not pass them on to our customers. But there was a fear that in January of 2020, there was going to be another raising of tariffs. And so Lena bought a whole bunch of inventory that came in at the end of December 2019.
Great move.
Well, it cost us so much money that we were not Ebitda positive that year.
Well, it's all right.
Well, then we actually were trying to raise money in 2020, and people are saying, but you weren't Ebitda positive last year. So
normalized Ebitda. It's normal. Let's normalize the Ebitda.
No. They're not giving it. They're not. All they see is you're not Ebitda positive. Clearly, things are starting to turn down. 2 months later, when COVID kicked in and no one could get any inventory, we looked like we were geniuses because we had all this inventory. And yet they still would not give us credit for it.
Interesting. Wow.
So basically, I mean, this is basically saying anyone who's looking to buy you is going to try and ding you every way they can. And you're, the best. I mean, if we had multiple options from other portfolio companies, or sorry, other private equity companies or something, we would have been able to drive a hard bargain. But otherwise, it was a great decision is the best thing I can say.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, fantastic to be in the position that you're in and still just building the company like crazy. Did you have a good year last year, 2022? Were you way up over?
I'm not legally allowed to say because in 2017, we did an equity crowdfunding raise. And so we're an SEC reporting company, which means I can't say anything that we haven't already published publicly. So what I can say is I can say two things that we published. 2021, we did 33.6 million. And the middle of by June of 22, we were up 60% compared to June of 21.
Nice. That's great. How many SKUs, by the way, now? How many, and I guess SKUs, I don't know if you count like if different colors of SKU or whatever, but how many different shoes?
Technically for footwear, every color of every size of every style is a unique SKU.
I know.
So right now we have, as of today, we have more products coming in soon. But as of today, we have about 34 styles. About 100. We have 34 styles of casual and performance shoes, boots, sandals.
I was in apparel for a while, and people would always say, "How many SKUs you got?" And I'm like, "Well, are we talking sizes and colors, or what are we?"
Right.
Okay.
No,
30.
If we go to the SKU level, it's probably about over 4,000.
Yeah, I would bet. What is the plan there? Are you continuing to launch more styles, and are you going to venture into other types of products besides shoes, or have you already?
I was thinking about unicycles, but the board is not on board with that. So, and I thought, what if it's a unicycle with a sidecar? That's unique.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, they're not willing to do that one either. So that's unfortunate. There's a time and a place for doing that. I mean, people ask us for apparel and for accessories and whatnot, and we are considering it, but it's one of those things that can easily be a distraction. So,
it could be.
So we're not there yet.
Yeah, it's true. And same thing, with any business owner, it's easy to, shiny penny and, let's try this, let's try that. And especially if you have a board, if you have an advisory board, and I appreciate our advisory board members here at Riderflex, but there are times, I go to dinner with somebody and they're like, "Oh, you should do this. You should do this. You should try this. You should try that." I'm like, "Yeah." Okay.
You know how we knew to say no to many of the people who wanted to invest in our company?
How?
If within the first meeting, they were giving us ideas, they're out. I mean, seriously.
You're still bringing everything over from China, I guess. Are you producing anything here?
It's literally not possible to make our stuff here. I like to say in the way it's literally not possible to get a domestically made version of the devices we're using for this conversation. And people say, well, if you wanted to, it's like, no, it's not possible. Yeah. Well, but if you try, it's like, no. Industry experts, of which you are not, say that to move manufacturing back over here would take at least 10 to 15 years and cost well over $100 billion. And even then, we're still bringing a lot of stuff over from Asia, including the know-how. So every country has problems is the best thing I can say. We are looking to diversify, but what people just don't understand how complex this stuff is. They like to think it's really simple. You just pack up and move to another country, or you move to somewhere else.
Because it was 100-year journey. I mean, seriously, probably took 100 years to get to where we're at, right? For everything to be manufactured overseas. That did not happen overnight. I mean,
no. And well, with footwear, and it's been over there for over 50 years. So the thing with our footwear, because we make stuff differently than traditional footwear, or not traditional, what people think of as normal footwear. Whenever we move to a new factory for a new product, for example, it takes us at least a year, often more, to train them how to make our product. And if we move to, say, Vietnam or Indonesia, even if we got a new factory trained, all the raw materials, all the supply chain is still coming out of China.
Yet is. Yeah. Do you speak Mandarin? When you go over, do you speak any? No.
Mail.
Is that no? Is that what? No, correct. I don't know what that.
Yeah. No, I speak just enough to make people think that I speak enough, and then it's bad. So I know I speak enough to be polite, to order food, that gets me in trouble.
Anybody listening to this podcast, I'm sure, knows the URL and the website and all that, but just to make sure I say it here, it's xeroshoes.com, zero with an X in the front, xeroshoes.com. And the Movement podcast. Also check that out. Check them out on Facebook as well. How many followers on Facebook? A ton, right? I don't know. How many do you know?
I have no idea. Somewhere in the 100,000 range. I don't know.
Yeah. I would call it organic marketing is incredible. Your hustle, because we follow the very similar path at Riderflex. We like you, we didn't pay for a lot of marketing or pay-per-click or AdWords. Like everything for us was organic, right? Just social media, organic, posting our own stuff, getting reviews. By the way, I think our 350 reviews are a lot. Then I look at your reviews. I'm like, wow, your organic internal hustle around marketing for your brand is phenomenal. You could do a show about it. You could write a book about it. How come you haven't written a book, by the way?
Because I'd rather shoot myself in the face. Well, I'll tell you, there are a couple of reasons. One is I'm too busy running Xero Shoes. And the other is that this is going to sound weird. I don't have anything to teach, really. I mean, tactics. Well, let me say this.
How to build a following. You could call it how to build a following. I mean, really?
Yeah, but so much of it is just because we, out of sheer luck and good fortune, have a product that changes people's lives. And so, that helps a lot, and gives us, pun intended, legs in a way that's different than if it's just like a t-shirt company that's doing something that's a flash in the pan. But fundamentally, I'm not doing, how do I want to say this? I'm not doing anything complicated per se. It's all very simple. How do you get people's attention? How do you get them to check out what you're doing? How do you make that experience as easy as you can? How do you provide good service, start to finish? And then you just have to find more ways of doing each of those things. How do you find additional ways of driving traffic? How do you find additional ways of making sure that when people come to the website, the site is working? How do you measure things so you can see why people might be leaving or why they might be not buying now, and what can you do to follow up with them? How do you, when you have customers, how do you cater to your customers and find out what they need next and what you can do to be helpful for them? We hired an email marketing company, mostly just to revamp stuff because I don't have time to do that. And their structure is great. I signed off on the structure they were doing, and then they started writing copy. And it was just like trying to beat you over the head and be manipulative about, going to buy. It's like, no, we're here to help people. That's the framework. It's like, we noticed that you were browsing on our site, and it looks like maybe you have a question about which product is right for you. If that's true, we have a shoe finder quiz that you can take. And
I love that, by the way. Yep. Love that.
And if not, here's our customer happiness team. And by the way, here's something really fun just to look at because, we thought we'd get a laugh out of this. And so we're very personal, we're very transparent, and we're here to be useful. And they're just like sell. And they had really beautiful graphics and things. So I said, I want you to split test the beautiful graphics against no graphics, maybe just a header. And they went, well, we'll test it, but this is what the best practices are. I went, yeah, I know, test it. Guess which one won? Not the pretty one.
Are you in charge of marketing? Do you have like a CMO or whatever? Or are you?
I'm effectively the CMO, but then I have a VP of digital marketing who we work in tandem. But the difference is that something that looks really glossy, whatever, it looks like you're a big nameless, faceless thing. Something that looks a little more, that still looks professional, but doesn't have that. We always want people to know, because it's true. They can pick up the phone and call us, any of us. My phone rings, I get 3 calls a week that go like this. Hi, this is Steven. Oh my God. Because I give out my phone number in a bunch of places. So it's, but literally, like just to highlight this really quickly, many of the specific things that I do, it wouldn't be useful to tell anybody, because those things, you can't start doing them until you're making 5 million or 10 million or 20 million. The stuff up until then, it's just not complicated. Find out where people are already looking for the solution that you can offer. Get in the way of that conversation by offering value, And that's, that's all, that's kind of it.
If you ever call me and you say, hey, can Riderflex do a search for a chief marketing officer for Xero Shoes? I'm going to say no, because whoever I put in front of you, you're going to be like, not good enough, not good enough.
I do believe there are people out there who would be good. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back when I say this. My friends who started internet marketing as long ago as I did, or actually a little longer ago than I did by about a year. We've been doing this since 1992, 93.
Right.
When I call them and I've said to them, hey, would any one of you want a $500,000 a year job? And they go, dude, we don't know how you're doing it anymore. So
seriously, yeah.
And so, but I know there are, what it's going to take most likely is someone who can organize, orchestrate things, and then someone who's a really, really good creative director.
Which is hard to have both of those traits, right? Very difficult.
It's very hard, right?
Very hard.
I'm unfortunately a really good copywriter, and the way I see things, how the copy works. I was just having this conversation with our team this morning. It's like, look, they said, what do you think of this ad? I went, I don't know who's supposed to see it. They said, what do you mean? I said, well, is it for our existing customers or for people who don't know us yet? Because for people who are existing customers, it's great. For people who don't know us, it couldn't be stupider, because it's not saying anything that they care about.
I love you're so authentic. That's probably why the PE firms and investors love you, because you just, bam. I'm honest, and I'm transparent.
I'd say it's half and half. I'd say there's certain people, when I call a spade, they're not really happy. Look, I said to one of our people in our PE firm, they were pitching this whole thing about doing a cybersecurity analysis and buying cyber insurance. And I said, why? Right. They said, well, to protect yourself. I said, from what? They said, cyber things. I said, specifically. They said, well, what if someone hacks your server? I go, we'll have it back up and running in 10 minutes on a different box. Well, what if someone hacks your office? I go, we're not running a network. There's nothing to hack. Everything's in the cloud. Well, what if, and everything they said, I said, we're immune to all of those things. Nice. And finally I said, look, if you want me to buy the insurance because it checks a box that makes you happy, that will make someone else happy in the future who might be trying to invest in us, then just tell me that and I'll do it. But don't bore me with your intellectually insufficient arguments.
Hey, speaking of copywriting, what are your thoughts on, and we could do a whole hour. Yeah, exactly. You know where I was going. We could do a whole hour podcast on this. I'll have to have you back on the show. With this ChatGPT and this AI with copywriting, give me your thoughts, man. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, it's all about the prompts. So it's all about learning to create good prompts, which can take a while and will be different for whatever different things you're trying to do. Yeah. What I found when I use it is it's good at creating good first drafts. Mm-hmm. And
a base to work from, and then tweak it or play with it or whatever.
Then edit the crap out of it. At some point, you will be able to upload your own, well, you can now kind of, you can upload your own data to train on your data as well. Mm-hmm. So someday I could be able to do something saying, I need a product description for a product that's like this in the style of Steven Sashen, and it'll know what that means. That will be super helpful. One of the places that we're looking to implement ChatGPT is for customer service, where we can train it on every email we've ever gotten and responded to. And then the idea being that when we get an inbound email, there's already a pre-written message that we can either say, great, it's perfect, or edit it. And the edited version will go back to the AI to learn from that. So that could be super, super helpful. But I can also say that there are a lot of people, for a lot of reasons, including Google and a lot of places, who are simultaneously creating programs to identify AI written copy, so they can devalue that in different ways. So there's some places where it's great on the copy side, and there's some places where it's useful, and there's some places where it's not going to do what you think. So it will undeniably change the world in ways that I would argue will probably be better. But it's going to take a little while to get there. And most likely, whatever we imagine it's going to do, we're wrong.
I love your positive outlook on getting your team to capitalize on it and use it for benefits. And how can this help us? How can it make us stronger? I've talked to a lot of people lately that are like, oh, the gloom and doom, and oh my God, this is going to destroy. Look, any of this technology, at least my advice, and I think I hear Steven saying the same thing for any of the listeners, find the positive. Like, if there's technology happening or there's AI advancing, figure out how it can help your company or help your team. don't run away from it. Don't be scared of it because it's here. It ain't going anywhere. So you might as well figure out how to capitalize on it, right?
No, there's some things that it's good at out of the box, and other things where you really got to tweak it significantly. And people are starting to do this. You're starting to see more people making videos and writing courses about how to create good prompts. And again, and you'll have to tweak those. Like I tried one the other day that didn't work in our situation. So it's like, oh, okay, I tried it, did not pan out. But there's some things like, give me 10 headlines for a product that does fill in the blank. And it gives me 10. And they go, now do that again, but funnier. And then you do that. I go, do that again, but in the style of Dr. Seuss. Do that again, but make it counterintuitive. And it's like, you just play with it and you start finding things that's like, oh, now I see where this is useful.
Did you see the extension? There's an extension that you can download for social media, like for LinkedIn, so that once the extension is in your Google Chrome or whatever you use, if there is a post and people are commenting on a post and there's a bunch of different comments, if you put your cursor down in like you're going to make a comment, it will generate a comment for you, and then you can tweak it.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just like, I tell my wife, I'm like, damn, this shit is moving fast. This stuff
but certain aspects of that we'll be able to start noticing. Like people have been using this for a while. You get on Google News and you read the articles, and I can tell from a mile away which ones are written by AI.
Yes.
And I'll tell you one of the secrets: they bury the lead like 10 paragraphs deep. It's like, here's the headline, and then it takes 10 paragraphs to get to where that's relevant again. It's like no real writer would ever do that.
I hope we don't enter a word. Now, I'm all for the tech, and I love the advancement of all of it. To wrap this particular topic up for today, I would just say I don't want to live in a world where your robot is talking to my robot, and we're never talking to each other, right? Like I don't, I want to.
Yeah.
I don't think I do anyway.
Yeah, I'm pondering that. If our robots are talking and everything's working okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Have your people, look, it's no different than have your people call my people.
I get, yes, true. I want to ask you about another topic. I know we're bumping up on time here.
Yeah.
Same thing. We could do an hour on this next question. Because you are a comedy guy, you come from that background, you obviously love comedy. Give me your short thoughts on what comedians have been up against the last 24 months with canceling narratives, cancel culture. You can't say this because my feelings are hurt and you're going to hurt somebody's feelings and blah, 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 blah. It's like, damn, it's very difficult to be a comedian these days.
Yeah. The way you can get around it is if you're famous enough that people come specifically to see you. But even then, it's a bit of a challenge. It's funny, I was having a conversation with a bunch of professional comics not long ago about this. And I said, I blame Jon Stewart, whom I've known for 30 years. And they said, why do you think that? I said, because when he hosted the Daily Show, that's where people were getting their news. That's when people started taking comedy seriously. And John would get on television shows and say, they're accusing him of being political. And he's saying, we're a comedy show. And I think that was disingenuous. So there was that component where people started paying attention to comedy differently because comedy is often speaking the truth about things. Not always. Dennis Miller, the things he says gets big laughs, but he's saying things that are not true very often. But it's not uncommon that's an opportunity to do that. And then there's another thing that happened simultaneous with this, which is what you said, is culturally we started, for whatever reason, coming to some sort of tacit agreement that you are responsible for how I feel.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And you put those two things together and all hell breaks loose. It's like, I get it. You didn't like the joke, but if you heard 100 other people laughing, guess what? It's you.
And nobody's forcing you to sit in a chair and listen to the joke.
Right.
It's not a prison.
You can have an opinion. That's fine, but it's just an opinion and it's not shared by everyone. And why would I try and change my life based on your opinion? There are other people who have other opinions. And I'm being very glib, in part because we have a limited amount of time. There are some things that, look, if you're going to do a pro-Nazi joke, we can argue about that one. Yeah. If you're going to do a joke where people will accuse you of being, say, Islamophobic or transphobic, which you're probably neither of those. You're not afraid of Islamic people. You're not afraid of trans people, but that's the term they use because inappropriately. You could, Sarah Silverman used to do a joke, and I'm going to do it.
Okay.
She'll get mad at me if she doesn't know me. The joke was, I started dating this guy who's half black, and then he dumped me because I'm such a loser. And oh my God, I just heard myself. I can't believe how negative I am. He was half white. Now, that joke, the structure is priceless. And it's not a racist joke. It's a racial joke. It's a joke about racism. But a lot of people no longer have the ability to understand the difference between content and context.
Right.
That's problematic. And
Yes,
she
it really is.
apologized for that joke many years after she did it. And a number of comics have said things similar to what I'm about to say, which is you can't criticize me today for a joke you laughed at 10 years ago. None of us knew. Things change.
Totally. I don't know how we got here. We're racing. Somebody told me the other day, or no, I know it was a clip. Somebody said we're raising a nation of sissies. We're raising a nation of wimps, where we can't. Like everybody's feelings are hurt. It's like, come on, man, come on.
Yeah, no, it really is wild. It's interesting when you said, if I retire, go back to comedy. I don't want to do it for a number of reasons, but I have no interest in I have no interest in like sharing opinions that people are going to argue with. Right. Why would I put myself in that situation? And then I'm also, hanging out in comedy clubs. I'm allergic to the stench of desperation. So that's a bit of a problem.
Hey buddy, you could easily, and I know we're out of time, you could easily go back into stand-up comedy. But I did think about that when I was preparing questions for you. I was like, man, I got to ask him about how comedians feel these days. I'll bet when you're behind the scenes having a few cocktails with your buddy comedians, I bet they're just like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy. I can't even say this. I can't say
No, they are the ones who've been doing it for, as long. I started 40 years ago. They're mystified. They're mystified.
I have to have you come back on the show. We'll do a full episode just on that topic.
All right. I'll
Congratulations. Congratulations on everything, my friend. Really appreciate you being back on the show. XeroShoes.com for everybody. Go check them out. Wonderful product. Great brand. Steven, thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Pleasure.